So, good afternoon everyone. I'm here in front of you to discuss the Module 1 of Forensic 300. By the way, my name is Kirby Katipay and I'm from Section Bravo and I'm here to begin. Next slide. So, Forensic Chemistry and Toxicology. So, toxicology, so it deals with the medical and legal aspect of the harmful effects of chemicals in human being. So this is forensic chemistry and toxicology. It is a study of uh, crime scene, or it involves the study of medicine in the crime scene. What is the possible or the fingerprint or etc. that involves in examination in the laboratory. So next slide. So this is the example picture of forensic chemistry and toxicology. Next slide. So if the law has made you a witness, so remain a man of science. So from the first sentence, it it shows, or it means that a man of a science is you need to a concrete evidence or concrete papers to justify your words in a court. So you have no victim to avenge, no guilty or innocent person to ruin or save. You must bear witness within the limits of science. So all you need to justify your words in the court in terms of in the way of giving evidence, concrete evidence that use in laboratory exams or etc. So next slide. So the introduction. So next. So forensic chemistry is defined as that branch of chemistry which deal with application of chemical principle in the solution of crimes. Like the other forensic science, forensic chemistry plays a very important part in the speedy investigation and in the administration of justice. So, same as other forensic science, forensic chemistry has a big role in solving crime because forensic chemistry, what I've said, so this is the examine of evidence in the laboratory which is needed in solving crime. Next slide. So the science has an advantage over extracted confession, eyewitnesses, and other circumstantial evidence. So it is regarded as the highest form of uncontestable and conclusive piece of evidence with the utmost legal significance. So this evidence, or the evidence which used in science or that is used in chemistry examination, which is ad, very concrete than other human or other eyewitnesses that present in court, because human can lie, and our technology designed for for so our technology designed for exact purpose. So next slide. The value of the findings of a chemist in convicting the guilty as well as in clearing the innocent suspects is widely recognized. The forensic chemist is often called to render testimony in court. So the forensic chemist, they are the is a professional chemist who analyzes evidence that is brought in from crime scene as and reaches a conclusion based on tests, run of that piece of evidence. So, forensic chemists is rarely conduct any investigative work. They handle the evidence collected from the crime scene. So, they are the one, or they are the called the professional witness, because they study the evidence from for the suspect to be convicted. Next slide. So, yeah. So, forensic chemistry and toxology deals with an application of chemistry in the identification of physical evidence, includes collection, preservation, examination, and study of blood, semen, and other body fluids. So, examination of dangerous drugs, gunpowder, and explosives, hair, and etc. So, forensic chemistry, this is the use of, or the use of forensic chemistry. So, it deals with the application and identification of evidence. So, they are the one who identify the possible evidence that be used in court, and it can, and also they are the one who examine the evidence for justifi- justification of evidence. So, next slide. So, textiles, fibers, chemical aspects of document examinations, problem of glass fragments and glass fracture, mucilage, metallurgy, and petrography, and as applied to crime scene investigation. So, study of the nature of chemical and physical properties, dosage, treatment, and detection of poison. So, these are also the use of forensic chemistry. They are the one who determine or identify the possible cause of death of the victim, or the possible poisons that they use in the victim. Next slide. So, forensic chemistry is the science that deals with the study of and application of chemical principle in the solution of problem that arises in connection with the administration of justice. So, forensic chemistry also includes the study and examination of DNA and deoxyribonucleic doxy or deoxyribonucleic acid. So, forensic chemistry, they are the one who's in charge for DNA examination, and forensic chemistry is uh, they have connections with the administration of justice, so they follow rules in examining an evidence. Next slide. So, chapter 4, dangerous drugs. So what is drugs? So, drug is a chemical substance that brings about physical, psychological behavior, and or psychological change in persons taking it. So, drug has side effects in a human body. So, it's up to that it's it's up the substance that is used to create that drugs, that is the so that it has possible effects or side effects of physical body of a person. So, next. So, a medicine or other substance which has a psychological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced into the body. It is from Oxford Dictionary. So, a medicines or other substance which are we intake are it has possible effect of human body, and some of that effects is good or bad. Next slide. So, discussions of dangerous drugs. Next slide. So, drug is a chemical substance that bring about physical, psychological, and behavioral or psychological change in a person taking it. So, as what I've said, so there will be the possible side effect. Sometimes if overuse of that certain drug, it can be cause of death or overdose. That's been called overdose, or it's possibly you can be high that your imagination will will overcome your decisions. So medicinal drugs. So next slide. So these are the medicinal drugs. So drugs has also been created for a purpose. So medicinal drugs is used to so medicinal drugs is created to cure diseases. So but if you abuse these drugs, it can also create a bad effect to your body. So these are the other types of medicinal drugs. So medicinal drugs is a substance which, when taken into a human body, cures illness and or relieves signs, symptoms of diseases. So this medicinal drugs is created to a certain disease to be cured and to avoid illness. So that's all for this video, and let's continue my report to the next. Afternoon again, everyone. So I'm here to continue my discussion about dangerous drugs. So when we talking about dangerous drugs, we think that shabu, there are so many dangerous drugs that is existed not only in the Philippines but all over the world. So the next slide. So the best here in the Philippines, the marijuana is one of the what I mean is the marijuana is can be also found in the Philippines. There are so many plantation of marijuana in in mountain part in here in the Philippines. So next slide. So marijuana has also a good effect in a human body, but some of our Filipinos are abuse it so that they can possibly high for that purpose. Or and also the good effect of marijuana is cure you I mean control your weight loss, and also it gives you productive mind, and also to it activate your time of thinking. I mean the decision making in taking these drugs. But the problem is the over abuse of these drugs can also cause our so marijuana is also used to link and the bad effects of marijuana is increased risk of depression and and it can be cause suicidal behavior, because when you intake that medicine, your behavioral attitude will change. So it also affect the heart health also. In when you inhaling marijuana smoke, so it causes your heart rate speed up, forcing your heart to work harder. So this effects, which start within 15 minutes and can last for up to 3 hours, so increase your chance of heart attack. So in fact, research shows your risk of heart attacks can increase up to fivefold within the first hour after smoking marijuana. So if you have a heart failure, so when you take marijuana, also it can be possibly that your cause of death. Next slide. So dangerous drugs, a substance affecting the central nervous system, which when taking into the human body brings about physical, emotional, and behavioral changes in a person taking it. So what I've said, so this is the possible effect when you intake that medicine. If you abuse it, so emotional and behavioral changes is the main 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 changes when main side effect of that medicine to your body. So next slide. So drug abuse. So this picture shows that a woman taking drugs or abusing the drugs. Next slide. So this picture shows the other types of drugs being abused. So drug abuse, any non-medical medical use of drugs that cause physical, psychological, legal, economic, or social damage to the users or to people affected by the user's behavior. So abuse usually refers to illegal drugs, but many may also be applicable to drugs that are available legally. So such as prescribed medications and certain over-the-counter medication. So not only the illegal drugs will affects or can create a bad effects to our body. Also medication drugs can be can give side effects or bad effects to our body when we abuse it. So it possibly the the normal the, the normal purpose of that medicines is to cure, but we take it even we don't have that illness, so it possibly attack the other parts of our nervous system or our body. So next slide. So classification of drugs. So according to origin, natural drugs are active ingredients, secondary metabolic products of plants and other living system that may be isolated by extraction. So examples are raw opium, marijuana, coca bush. So these are the natural drugs. So it is also raw materials to create medicine for a certain diseases. Oh, next slide. So that is the example of the drugs are created through natural. So synthetic drugs. So are artificially produced substance synthesized in the laboratory for the illicit market, which are almost wholly manufactured from chemical compounds in illicit laboratories. Example, methamphetamine and barbiturates. So, some medicines or synthetic drugs is used are the raw materials is chemicals which can be called methamphetamine, methamphetamines, and other or synthetic drugs are created using man-made chemicals rather than natural ingredients. A numbers of synthetic drugs on the markets, including ecstasy, LSD, and methamphetamines, are described in other booklets in the Truth About Drugs series. So these are the example of synthetic drugs. So according to legal classification, RA 9165 Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002 and PD 1619 Volatile Substance and RA 6425 classified as regulated and prohibited. So RA 9165, so Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002, Republic Act number 9165, an act on instituting the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, repealing Republic Act number 6425, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drugs Act of 1972, as amended, providing funds therefore are and for other purposes. So otherwise known as the Comprehensive Drug Act of 2002. The term prohibited and regulated was changed into dangerous drug with the classification 2. So the purpose of this law is to pursue an intensive and unrelenting campaign against the trafficking and use of dangerous drugs and other similar substance. Next slide. So, immediate pro, 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 precursors, chemical substance used in the clandestine manufacturing process becomes incorporated in full or part into the final molecules of a substance under international control. So, essential chemical substance used as reagent or solvent in the illegal manufacture of controlled precursors. So, narcotic, psychotropic, and designer. So, this also the law against illegal drugs of RA 9165. So, Presidential Decree 1619, volatile substance. So, penalizing the use of, possession of, or the unauthorized sale to minors of volatile substance for the purpose of inducing intoxications or in any manner changing, destroying, or disturbing the auditory, visual, or mental process. So, the best example of this is the solvent or the rugby that is very known in minors that's using drugs. So, next slide. So, whereas reports from law enforcement agency reveal that certain substances which are openly sold to the public are being availed of by drug dependents are as substitutes for dangerous drugs. So next slide. So medical research and studies shows what the use of excuse me substitutes could cause that psychological damage to the liver, kidney, heart, blood, and nervous system, induce dependency, self-destructive, and antisocial acts while under the influence, therefore, and lead to the use of other drugs. So, according to research and studies, such as substance that is used or illegal drugs are cause can also cause of death and also psychological damage to the livers and some parts of our body. Next slide. So it is imperative to stop the use of such substance as substitute for dangerous drugs. So our minors are and our teenagers, the best substitutes for them of the best substitute of shabu or marijuana is the solvent or the rugby for them for the purpose of their satisfaction. So next, Republic Act 6425, classification of prohibited drugs. So includes opium and its active components are the derivatives such as heroin and morphine, cocoa leaf, and derivatives principally cocaine, alpha and beta, cocaine, hallucinogenic drugs such as mescaline, so lysergic diethylamide or LSD, and other substance producing similar effects, Indian hemp and its derivatives, all preparations made from any of the foregoing, and other drugs and chemical preparation, whether natural or synthetic, with psychosociological effects of a narcotic or hallucinogenic drugs, or amended by BP 779 dated March 2, 1982. So next slide. So regulated, which includes self-introducing sedatives such as secobarbital, pentobarbital, and barbital, amobarbital, and any other drugs which contains a salt or derivative of a salt barbituric acid, any salt isomer or salt as of an isomer of amphetamine such as benzadrine or dexadrine, or any other which produce a physiological action similar to amphetamine, and hypnotic drugs such as methaqualone and nitrazepam, or any other compound producing similar psychological effects as amended by Presidential Decree number 1683 dated March 14, ay 1980. Next slide. Dangerous drugs are a substance affecting the central nervous system, which when taken into the human body brings about the physical, emotional, and behavioral changes in a person taking it. A substance which, when taken into the human body, alters mood, perception, feelings, and behavior. Next slide. So, according to international classification, a narcotic substance are a substance used to treat moderate to severe pain. Narcotics are like opiates such as morphine, and codeine, but are not made from opium. They bind to opioid receptors in the central nervous system. So these drugs, main the main the main cells that uh, that attack these drugs in our body is our central nervous system. Next slide. So this is the example of drugs that intake uh, the persons. Psychotropic substance. So a drug or other substance that affects how the brain works and causes changes in mood, awareness, thoughts, feelings, or behavior. Example of psychotropic substance include alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, marijuana, and certain pain medicines. So this substance or these drugs affects our behavioral attitudes, our emotions, and these drugs also called marijuana or other substance like or other certain pain medicines. Next slide. So this picture shows how drug addicts use their satisfaction in drug abuse. So, designer drugs. So, the term designer drugs refers to drugs that are created in a laboratory, typically an underground or secret illegal laboratory. A designer drug is created by changing the properties of a drug that comes from a plant such as cocaine, morphine, or marijuana using the tool of chemistry. So, these drugs also involve shabu, the that man-made drugs that some elements of medicinal drugs are changed for them to gain their to gain their wants during their during the taking it. So, next slide. Next slide. So, according to pharmacological classification, stimulants are drugs which increase alertness of physical disposition. Example of this is amphetamine, street names, eye opener, lead proper, pills, uppers, hearts, and next is shabu, methamphetamine, methamphetamine, hydrochloride. So, street names, Foreman's, cocaine, shabs, ubas, siopaw, sha, ice, and S. So, next slide. So, stimulants, addiction, abuse, and threats treatment options. So, stimulants side effects. So, dizziness, hypertension, insomnia, confusion, potential for addiction, nausea, and diarrhea. So, these are the possible side effect when you're taking drugs, illegal drugs. So, hallucinogens are drugs which affects sensations, self-awareness, and emotion. Example of these are ecstasy, street names ecstasy, Adam, Adam, essence, E, and herbals. LSD or lysergic dithylamide, street names Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Wedding Bells, Acid, White Sugar, Lightning Cubes, Brain Eaters. So, marijuana, street names Mary Jane, Flower, Pampapugi, Brownies, Damo, Pat, Tea, Joint, Dope. So, next slide. And these are the street names or the hallucinogens drugs. So, next slide. Next slide. Effects of hallucinogens are altered sensor perception, dissociational thoughts, laughing, feeling more confident, or these are the trip and the bad trip or anxiety. So next is the depressants are drugs which depress or lower the function of the central nervous system. So these drugs are the possible outcome is this is the depressions or it affects your emotional behavior and it can cause anxiety. Next slide. Next slide. So types of depressants. So narcotics. So narcotic drugs which includes sleep, hypnotics or stupor and relieve pain and analgesics. So these drugs are used or sleeping. This includes sleeping pills or etc. So tranquilizer. So a substance that reduce anxiety, ease tensions, and relax muscles. So tranquilizers are used to the person's so these substances are used to the person who cannot control their behavior, and for them their muscle will be relaxed and calm. So next slide. So sedatives and hypnotics drugs are used to calm the nerves, reduce tension, and induce sleep. Example, barbiturates and alcohol. So these drugs used to the person who can sleep or they need to calm themselves. Next slide. So these pictures shows the example of those drugs. So alcohol, how it affects our brain and body. So decreased brain activity, speech it's slurred, impaired vision, cause sleeplessness, drowsiness or unconsciousness. Kidneys produce more urine, affects coordination, diminish judgment, decision making skills and concentration. Heart and blood pressure increase. Too much alcohol in the stomach causes vomiting. So so as we observe, so the other, if we are drunk or we are so if sometimes we are influenced of alcohol, we feel sleepy, or sometimes we speak too much that we didn't take the possible speech that we use, or sometimes we vomit too much alcohol cause us vomiting. And next slide. So inhalants. So these are the any liquid, solid or mixed substance that has the property of releasing toxic vapors of fumes. So examples are solvent, glue, gasoline, kerosene, naphthalene and paint, naphthalene paint thinner. Next slide. So these are the example of inhalants. So this picture shows the person who use inhalants drugs. So immediate. So feeling light, headed and dizzy, loss of inhibitions, agitations, aggressive behavior, headaches, confusion and drowsiness, hallucination, irritation to eyes, nose and throat, slurred speech, suffocation, sudden sleeping death syndrome caused by heart and failure that can occur within a few minutes, increased heart rate, nausea and vomiting, loss of coordination and balance. So long term, so dependence, brain damage, loss of hearing and vision, problems of breathing, tremors, increased risk of leukemia from petrol sniffing, damage to the immune system, bones, nerves, kidneys, liver, heart and lungs. So next slide. So what are considered dangerous drugs? So dangerous drugs is a substance affecting the central nervous system which when taken into the human body brings about physical, emotional, and behavioral changes in a person taking. So these are the possible outcome when you taking drugs. These are the side effects in taking it. Next slide. So it is also a substance which when taking into the human body alters mood, perceptions, feelings and behavior. So behavior and mood and feelings are the main affected when you're using those drugs. So next slides. So under Republic Act 6425, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drug Act of 1972. So dangerous drugs are classified into three main categories, namely prohibited drugs and regulated drugs. So prohibited drugs, which includes opium and its active components and derivatives such as heroin, morphine, coca leaf, and its derivatives. So, prohibited drugs, which principal cocaine, alpha and beta, cocaine, hallucinogenic drugs such as mescaline, lysergic acid, diethylamide, or LSD, and more, and other substance producing similar effects. So, these prohibited drugs are the illegal drugs that's against our law, and these are the possible effects of those drugs are affects our behavioral and emotional behavior will be changed. Next slide. So, Indian hemp and its derivatives, all preparation made from any of the foregoing and other drugs and chemical preparation, whether natural or synthetic, with the psychological effects of a narcotic or a hallucinogenic drugs, or as amended by BP 179 dated March 2, 1982, prohibited drugs. So, those drugs are mandated that are illegal during March 2, 1982. Slide. So, regulated drugs, so which include self-inducing sedatives such as secobarbital, barbital, armbarbital, and any other drug which contains a salt or a derivative of a salt or barbitic acid, any salt isomer or salt of an isomer of amphetamine such as benzydrine and or dexydrine. So these drugs are injected drugs, and it also put on salt. Thus drugs are putted by salt for the purpose of chemical imbalance. Or any drugs which produce a psychological action similar to amphetamine, and hypnotic drugs such as methaqualone, nitrazepam, or any other compound producing similar psychological effects, as amended by Presidential Decree 1683 dated on March 14, 1980. Next slide. So, Republic Act 9165, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, gives a single definition between prohibited and regulative drugs. So, the old law defines the term dangerous drugs as pertaining to either prohibited or regulative drugs. So, drug dependence. So, drug dependence means a state of psychic or physical dependence, or both, on a dangerous drug arising in a person's following administration or use of the drugs on a periodic or continuous basis. Next slide. So, characteristics of drugs dependency. So, physical dependence, the body's physical system change until the body needs that particular drug just in order to function. So, mental or psychological, sociological, dependence, need of drug just in order to feel good, to get by, or feel normal. Idiosyncrasy of side effects. So characteristics of drug dependency. So some individuals depends on that certain drugs in order to live or in order to get their satisfaction or to get feel normal. Next slide. So use refers to the act injecting intra intravenously or intramuscularly or of consuming either by chewing, smoking, sniffing, eating, swallowing, drinking, or otherwise introducing into the physiological physiological system to the body any of the dangerous drugs. So use it is how they use the certain drugs in order to introduce to their body or how they intake those drugs. So sell means the act of giving dangerous drugs whether for money or any other material consideration. So sell, so some of individual sells those drugs for the for their income, also for their for their own for their own wants. So next slide. So examination of dangerous drugs. So drug testing is a form of forensic testing. So the results issued should be scientifically forensically defensible. So drug testing is also form of forensic testing. So forensic means study of something. So or examining something. So drug testing involve science because it also use materials to be examined to determine that you are an influence of some drugs. So next slide. So drug identification. So it's a branch of forensic chemistry that deals with the scientific examination of drugs and volatile substance. So in drug identification for also it has also the involves the branch of forensic chemistry because it examine the substance that's that can be found in human body and compared to that certain drugs or it involves scientific examination. So drug identification is usually conducted by a forensic chemist or chemical officer to determine the presence of dangerous drugs on submitted specimens. The forensic chemist or chemical officer also can conduct drug tests on body fluids of suspected drugs pushers and users to determine the presence of dangerous drugs metabolites. So paraphernalia like smoking pipes, toters, and aluminum foil should also be submitted for examination to determine the presence of dangerous drugs. So drug identifications involve the persons who or the suspect to be examined because we get the his body fluids or specimens to be examined to be sure that he is under the influence of drugs or it has presence of drug in his body. So next slide. So examination of samples taken from alleged dangerous drugs. So method of examination. So qualitative examination and quantitative examination. So, steps common to qualitative and quantitative method. So, selection of method to be used, physical test, sampling, sample preparation, chemical test, confirmatory examination, calculation and interpretation of data, drawing of conclusion and writing report. So, next slide. Two phases in the examination of highly dangerous drugs. Screening test, preliminary test, or this test is non-specific and preliminary in nature. So it is employed to reduce the family or group of drug to a small and manageable number. Screening test includes a series of color tests producing characteristics colors for each family or group of drugs. So this is done by adding specific reagent to a known sample in a spot plate. Next slide. Screening test is quite simple to perform, even by investigators in the field. In fact, field tests using these techniques are being taught in narcotics investigation courses. So, takes reagents and basic apparatus commercially available. So, color reaction. So, color reaction, cannabis, doquanos, leven, or violet, pass blue, B, salt equals purple, red, cocaine, cobalt, cyanide test or CT test, blue scat test or modified CT test, reagent 1 until equal to blue, reagent 2 equal to pink, reagent 3 equal to blue, Wagner test or equal to brown, specific test for cocaine, diazepam, Zimmerman test or reddish purple or pink, some benzodiazepine derivative do not give color with this test. Hydrochloric acid, yellow, Vitali Morentes, yellow orange, opium, marquis, violet, ferric sulfate, brownish purple, mic, blue to green, nitric acid, orange to red to yellow, morphine, marquis, violet to reddish or purple. Codeine, mic, blue to green, nitric acid, orange to yellow, heroin, mic to equal to blue to green, nitric acid, yellow to green, barbiturates, dial, Coupagny test, reddish purple, methamphetamine, hydrochloride, Simon test equals blue, Marquez test, orange to brown, ecstasy, Simon test equals to blue, methaqualone and pencyclidine, CT test equals to blue, lysergide or LSD in Ehrlich equals to violet, mescaline, Marquis test, orange, Lieberman equals to black. Next slide. Note, possible results of these tests are not conclusive. Confirmatory tests have to be performed by the forensic chemist or chemical officer on case to establish the presence and identification of dangerous drugs. So, confirmatory test. Confirmatory test is the method employed to confirm the result of the screening preliminary test, which this involves the applications of an analytical procedures to identify the presence of specific drugs or metabolites. This is independent to the screening test, and which uses techniques and chemical principle different from that of the initial test in order to ensure reliability and accuracy. There are several methods used in the confirmatory test, some of which are, so in confirmatory test, so in testing we need to undergo confirmatory test because some drug test is also affected if you have medicine intake because of your illness or your maintenance. It can also affect to that certain exam or test. So we need confirmatory test to ensure the result of that certain exams. So chromatography. So chromatography is the process of separating mixtures and comparing the migration of each component with standard. Some chromatographic technique includes gas chromatography, thin layer chromatography, high pressure liquid chromatography. So what is gas chromatography? So it is a separate technique. The mobile phase is a gas. Separation is based on the difference in migration rates among sample components. So spectroscopy, a confirmatory method whereby light is used to identify the sample and specimen. So types of spectroscopy is Fourier, transform infrared spectroscopy, ultraviolet visible spectroscopy, mass spectroscopy. Examination of the urine specimen. So the rate of excretion from the body depends on the drug's solubility in fat. Water soluble drugs such as cocaine are excreted quickly, while fat soluble drugs such as marijuana may take several weeks or months before excretion. Drug test must be CTD to so accredited to apprehend suspects who are suspected to be users. So and to those who are charged with the offense of illegal use of dangerous drugs. So validity test for urine specimen. Validity test is a test to determine the integrity of the samples. Reasons for conducting validity tests in case of unobserved urine collections, when there is a suspicions that the urine specimen has been tampered. So, validity test for urine specimen is also needed for the reason for in case of the urine is the urine collection is damaged or it it has been tampered. So, next slide. Instances when to allow unobserved urine specimen collection. So, when donor is physically unable to go to the laboratory, involved in crime scene, involved in post-accident, critically ill. So, next slide. Different types of tampered urine specimen. So, adulterated. So, a specimen containing either a substance that is not a normal constituent for that type of specimen or containing an indigenous substance at a concentration that is not a normal physiologic, physiological concentration. Diluted refers to the specimens which with less than normal physiological constituents substituted a specimen which has been derived through switching or replacing the original sample. Ways to adulterate urine sample. So, addition of salt, addition of juice, addition of detergent, addition of bleach, and other oxidizing adulterants. So, addition of illicit drugs. So, next slide. Way to substitute a urine sample. Urine from friends or other persons not using drugs may be used as substitute specimen. Replace sample with other substance similar in appearance. So, ways to dilute a urine specimen. Internal dilution. So, intake of plenty of water before collection or drinking a herbal tea, etc. External dilution, addition of water to previously collected urine. So, next slide. Parameters for validity test. Initial validity test. Physical characteristics such as color, odor, etc. Volume, temperature, pH, specific gravity, nitrates, creatinine, oxidizing agents. So, in confirmatory validity test, physical characteristics such as color, odor, etc., volume, temperature, pH, specific gravity, nitrates, creatinine, oxidizing agent. Next slide. Methods for confirmatory validity test. So, physical characteristics visualize, determine. Volume same as physical characteristics. Temperatures using temperature. pH mean using temperature temperature using thermometer pH to pH meter calibrated with appropriate buffers. Specific gravity, use a refractometer to meter. So, criteria and determining tempered urine specimen. So, adulterated. So, pH less than 3 or greater than 11. Nitrate greater than 500. So, presence of endogenous or exogenous substance, diluted, SP gravity, creatinine, substituted, SP gravity, creatinine, and pH. So, next slide. when do we consider urine specimen as invalid? So adulterated, substituted or diluted, improperly collected, handled and stored, improperly documented. So these are the possible aspects that can cause to be invalid the urine specimen. So that's all, and thank you for listening, and have a nice day. Stay safe. Goodbye.